All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. Bradley, I have a question. Yes, Fenton? Will there be refreshments? Yes, Fenton. There will be cookies and punch provided after writing group. Well, I would have preferred a nice charcuterie, but I suppose that will do. Fenton, this is our writing group, not a clandestine meeting of influential titans of industry. We don't have that kind of budget. I understand that. I'm just saying maybe we find a way to increase the food budget for the next one, that's all. I'll see what I can do. All right, did everyone bring something based on this week's prompt?
Oh, yeah, I have something.
Great, Arnold. Let's hear what you got.
Writing is a lot like working out.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah, that's as far as I got. I'm worried it sounds derivative.
I don't think there's enough of it to be derivative of anything.
Well, I liked it.
I think it's a pretty strong start.
I would narrate it.
Okay, thanks for the feedback, everybody. Gollum, Schmeagol, what did you bring?
The pressures.
Please tell me you have more than that.
Nope, that's it. We're trying to appeal to the TikTok generation. Their attention spans are short, just like stinky little hobbitses.
Okay, fine. David, what about you?
Oh, no, I'm just a narrator.
Okay, but this is a writing group.
I am seeking inspiration.
Okay, that's fair. Fenton, can you please show everyone how it's done? What did you write for this week's prompt? Ha! Watch and learn, everyone. Sarai could barely believe her eyes. From the moment she was born, Davine's moon had been shattered. It was a scar on the night sky, a reminder of the cost that hubris exacts on both mortals and gods alike. Oh, wow, that's really good! Yeah, Fenton, that's an amazing opener.
We likes it. Fenton's is a very good writer.
Hang on a second. Fenton, isn't that just the opening of this past week's Order the Pawn chapter? Well, I mean, it's similar, yes, but I would say that my version is far more engaging. Fenton, I'm looking at the post right now and it's exactly the same, word for word. Listen, Mr. Writer, why don't you stick to what you're good at and leave the storytelling to experts like me? And what exactly am I good at, Fenton, if not storytelling? Well, I suppose your Saved as Draft podcast is halfway decent. Hey, wait a second, you're trying to get out of this by ending the intro, aren't you? Ha ha ha! I'll never tell!
Fenton!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 64 of the Saved as Draft podcast. This week's episode is back to our normal rotation. That means shoutouts, power-up prompt stories, weekly writing discussion, and of course, a featured guest interview. My guest this week is Trevor Cohen. Trevor has been a writer his entire life, working in many different professional roles, and even co-authoring a book about sustainability called Bright Green Future. These days, however, he's shifting back toward creative writing, publishing short fiction here on Substack while he works on larger projects. Trevor also recently hosted an event called Day of the Writer, which I myself participated in. We'll talk about all of this and more in the full interview, so look forward to that later in the episode. Before we get into this week's shoutouts, it's time for our community spotlight. This week, I'd like to shout out my friend Victor Clubb, who you may better know as Bent But True here on Substack. Victor and I have known each other for quite some time now. He was actually my guest on episode 55 of the podcast here, and I highly recommend that interview. This is someone who is deeply passionate about the community and helping other writers. He actually recently launched the Indie Ink Fund alongside several other writers here on Substack, and that entire organization is focused on helping writers get the help they need to keep producing their work. Case in point, when I was struggling last year, Victor banded together with others in the community to organize and publish an anthology of stories submitted to my first Indulgence Writing Challenge. All the proceeds from that book were donated to me, and let me tell you, that really, really helped me get through a tough financial situation. Beyond the work he does in the community, though, Bent But True is also an insanely talented author. He publishes all kinds of work here on Substack, ranging from fiction to nonfiction, and all of it is deeply personal and extremely well written. If you have yet to meet this amazing author and human being, let this moment be your sign. Find a link to subscribe to Bent But True in the show notes. All right. And that is housekeeping for the week. Let's dive into the weekly shoutouts right after a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's episode of the Saved as Draft podcast is sponsored by All the Time in the World. How the heck is it already 5 p.m.? Oh, God, I'm so behind.
Hey, are you almost done working? We've got dinner reservations.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to leave the rest for tomorrow. There's just not enough time in the day.
Well, I've got all the time in the world.
Lucky you.
No, I mean, I use a new service called All the Time in the World. Have you heard of them?
No? What do they do?
They're the world's first time dilation on-demand service. They can slow down time relative to your current location and give you precious hours in your day to finish all those projects you're working on.
Holy crap, you're serious? How do they do it?
No idea. Something about black holes and gravitational fields. It works, though. My days now last 36 hours instead of 24.
That's incredible. And there's no side effects or anything?
Not that I know of.
Your nose is bleeding.
Oh, whoops. That's been happening a lot lately.
Do you think it might have anything to do with you violating the natural laws of the universe?
I doubt it. And besides, I'll take a few nosebleeds if it means actually getting all my work done.
I hear that. Okay, all right, I'll check them out. Thanks for the tip.
What?
Oh, I said thanks for the tip. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Sounds sometimes take longer than normal to reach me lately.
Uh-huh. Well, it's still worth it. Tired of running out of time? Wish you could squeeze more hours into your day? Sign up today for a free trial of All the Time in the World and experience what it's like to finally be caught up. And we're back. Each week I open a thread in my subscriber chat where I ask you to share links to your latest work. I share these links with Mina Howell and her Penny Dreadfuls podcast, and between the two of us, we pick several to talk about on our respective shows each week. For me, that's 5 stories selected at random. So let's dive in and see what we got. First up this week is The Medusa Glitch, Part 2, by Tina Crossgrove. You'll find a link to Part 1 here as well, and I'd recommend checking it out. Both parts aren't super long, but man, do they make an impact. The world building here from Tina is absolutely top notch. I mean, holy crap, I was insanely immersed within the first few paragraphs. In this story, Tina describes a futuristic cyberpunk dystopia where technology is far more advanced than what we have today. But things we know today that are problems have been taken to the extreme. That means things like AR, deepfakes, and brain-computer interfaces are everywhere. Thoughts themselves can be hacked. Consciousness can be turned into a public stream. It's wild stuff. And among all this, we learn about a new phenomenon that's turning people into something called synth stone. And it's all tied to a program called Gorgon.exe. Now that's all I'll say because I don't want to spoil everything, but as someone who has read a lot of sci-fi and cyberpunk, gotta say, Tina's approach here feels really fresh and vibrant in equal measure. I am entirely invested in this world and very excited for Part 3. Let's check out an excerpt. Outside the feed, her room is a hollow echo of her former life. A neural rig pieced together from tech she's bought on the black market and a mattress on the floor. The glow from the rig is her only companion now, an extension of her obsession rather than the inspiration for her art. She's not creating, not anymore. She's scavenging. Fragments spiral around her, slivers of memory. A face flickers past. A voice cuts in mid-sentence, then dies. A moment, someone else's, repeats until it glitches apart. All of it digitized, commodified, and discarded by the system. Lita stops scrolling, zeroes in on a pixelating image. She quickly pushes a command through the rig, forces the image to stabilize. It's the hologram she retrieved earlier today from a hidden feed. The statue. A man frozen in mid-step. He's not human anymore, his skin turned to slick, polished stone, veins of gold circuitry running through his limbs. his last moment is etched into every bite of his transformation. Wow, so good. The imagery, as you can see, is a standout element. Find a link to this one in the show notes. Our second shout out this week is Audrey the Unicorn Girl, Chapter 1 by E.H. Lau. This is actually the first time I've reviewed a comic on the podcast, but I'm extremely excited to talk about this one. In this first chapter, we learn about the origins of Audrey, who's a young girl that was discovered in the woods as a baby. As the name suggests, she has a horn in the center of her forehead. She also has pointed ears like an elf, but otherwise looks pretty human. The comic jumps from this first scene to her as a young girl in school, and we get to meet some of her friends. By the end, we're introduced to a new student named Ken, and Audrey seems to be rather smitten with him. I love this first chapter. It's wholesome, it's cozy, and it's very well paced. The setup is intriguing. I'm curious to learn more about Audrey's origins and how she gets along with other kids, given that she looks a lot different than they do. And of course, the ending of Chapter 1 has me wondering if she and Ken are going to hit it off or not. Lots of great threads here, and I have to give the art a special shout out as well. It's fun, colorful, and each panel is very well composed. Can't really read an excerpt here because it is a comic, but I highly recommend you check it out. As of this writing, Chapter 2 is out as well, so head on over, subscribe, and check it out. Find a link in the show notes. Our third shout-out this week is Legend of the Broadsword Samurai by John Grishak. This is the first story I've read from this author, but damn, it makes a good first impression. This first chapter introduces us to a band of pirates and a character named Demetrius, who seriously has some epic aura, as the kids say, almost immediately. He doesn't speak much, but when he does, it comes with gravitas, and it's followed by action. As the chapter goes on, Demetrius slaughters the pirates one by one. He honestly feels like a force of nature by the end. The way that the author instills fear here is excellent, and the action is brutal with imagery to match. By the end, I was left in total awe of this character. It's a phenomenal introduction that left me wanting more. Let's check out an excerpt. All Demetrius could see was darkness. He could only hear the faint echo of water dripping from his wet clothes and bantering of the pirates above him. The lower decks smelled of alcohol. The floor was made treacherous by bloody gold pieces that softly dug into his boots with every step, silently moving between half-empty wooden kegs. He cautiously stepped through the lower deck, using the slivers of light between the weak floorboards from the lantern-lit party above to guide his path around the heaps of stolen goods. The gaps in the floorboards grew as he walked, and he could see that he was walking over more than just gold pieces. The dim light from above revealed bloody necklaces, helmets, and cracked armor pieces, salvaged from conclave soldiers that surrounded him like a dark graveyard. "Vengeance," Demetrius said to himself, as he held a stolen necklace up to a sliver of light, the gleam of its beautiful gem stained with its owner's blood. "All I can give them now is vengeance." So good. Seriously, really fun read. Check the show notes for a link. Our fourth shout out this week is Memories Worth Fighting For by CJ Knight, aka Terrifying Tales. This one is a story set in Mina Howell's Infernoverse, which, for those unaware, is a sort of noir take on the circles of hell first introduced in the Divine Comedy, and more specifically Dante's Inferno. Of course, Mina's work on this universe has molded it into something way more complex and unique than that description would imply, but that's the idea. So, with this story, Terrifying Tales offers up the third in a series of microfiction works. In this piece, we join the demon Beelzebub, who goes by B, and the archangel Michael at the borders of heaven. Now, that's an interesting opening in and of itself. What's a demon doing with an angel? Well, turns out in this story they're lovers, and they've come seeking B's memories. They come face to face with the angel of memories, Zachriel, and from there the story kicks into high gear with an epic fight scene. CJ nails the pacing here as well. It's an intense back and forth with no clear winner until the very end. As someone who's read a fair amount of Mina's work in this universe, I gotta say that this story felt right at home in terms of both the tone and style. And that's not surprising because CJ has shown his ability to write in other universes before. Devine fans will recall that this is the author who wrote the first ever story introducing us to the character of Blackheart. A character so good, he became a villain in the first book of The Order of the Pawn. So let's check out an excerpt here from CJ's story set in Mina's universe. The corridor ended at a magnificent golden gate laced with silver. Ancient symbols to match the archway were carved into the metal. The gates opened in complete silence at their approach, revealing a figure. He stood still as a monument, White wings folded neatly at his back, his golden armor laced with the same silver symbols as the gate he stood behind. A shield sat to his left, and to his right, a sword. The blade of the sword reflected the light. His face was expressionless, ageless. This angel remained untouched by the conflicts of the realms. He opened his eyes. They settled on Michael. "Yours is a face I have not seen for some time." Michael's body tensed. Zachriel, the angel of memories. Zachriel's eyes shifted to Bee. A furrow appeared on his brow, almost imperceptible. "That explains the disgust I felt upon your approach." Bee's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Huh, you're charming." Michael stepped forward, but something unseen at the open gate prevented his entry. Zachriel's eyes remained on Bee. "Did you forget, brother? You cannot pass the threshold." Michael nodded. "I hadn't forgotten. I'd hoped things had changed." Bee's eyes darted between them. "You're not coming?" Michael refused to meet her eyes. "This place does not let those who remember enter its gates." "And I don't?" Zachriel laughed.
"You do not, Beelzebub." His voice hardened. "I keep locked away what was taken from you."
Michael met Bee's eyes. "This journey is yours alone." An expression formed on his face that Bee couldn't place. "I'll wait here for you." Wow. Awesome work. Really enjoyed this one. Be sure to dive into the whole series and check out Mina's work in this universe as well. You'll find a link to this one, like all the other shoutouts, in the show notes. Our final shoutout this week is Why Do They Feel Familiar in a Way I Can't Explain by Joel L. So, I'm familiar with some of Joel's work, particularly the audio stuff that Joel has done, which is spectacular, by the way. This piece is something new, though. It reads like a stream of consciousness, a meditation on concepts that defy definition. Somewhere between a poem, a story, and an article, it dives deep, too, pulling in examinations of Greek words and their meanings, while attempting to articulate feelings that no language has ever been able to capture. In this journey, the post expands into music, offering up 2 songs by the end that come close to capturing the feeling discussed in the piece. I loved this. It's beautifully written, and it reaches profound and philosophical heights by its end. Let's check out an excerpt so you can see what I mean. Infatuation is distortion. It softens edges, fills in gaps, paints over what's missing until the image feels complete. You don't see them as they are, you see what your mind needs them to be. It's bright, fast, a little reckless. Obsession carries heavier weight, from obsedere to besiege. Obsession isn't warm or tender, it's intrusive, repetitive. It doesn't ask permission. It loops because it has to, not because you want it to. It overrides your better judgment and keeps you returning anyway. It says, you don't get to look away. So we draw a line. Infatuation distorts reality. Obsession overrides it. One is a fog, the other is a siege. But there's a third state. It's quieter and more difficult to name. It doesn't feel like losing control or like fooling yourself. It feels like recognition, familiarity, like waveforms, meshing and flowing cleanly, each complementing and enhancing the other. Wow. Beautiful work there. Definitely check this one out, the link in the show notes. And once again, a big thank you to everyone who shared links in my subscriber chat this week. You'll find a new thread this coming Tuesday where you can share even more links for a chance to be featured on the show. Next up, we'll take a look at this week's Wandering Prompt Stories. Hello and welcome to this week's Wandering Prompt Awards ceremony. Hey, hold on a second, I'm almost done brewing my tea. These stories already brought the tea, though. Haha. Wait, what? This past Wandering Prompt was about tea. Get it? Oh, yeah, I get it. That's funny. I still need my cuppa. All right, well, in the meantime, I'll pass the mic over to Bradley and the Prompt Goddess to talk about this week's stories. All right, thanks, guys, and welcome, everyone. This week, our winning story was Out of Leaves by Wendy Russell. So let's talk about the story and read an excerpt. I'll share my thoughts first, and then we'll have the Prompt Goddess jump in and tell us what she thought. So with this story, I often always talk about how Wendy is really good with dialogue and with pacing in her stories, and that's true here too, but this one actually has a lot less dialogue, and it's more about kind of creating that really intense building sense of dread as the story goes on. Like it's clear at the beginning that our protagonist is making a mistake, breaking the rules, which I really like how there's rules here with how the tea is consumed as per the prompt. But I love how, like, right off the bat, you know something's wrong and this isn't going to go well. And then as the story goes on, you get more and more of those layers. And then ultimately just ends on this chilling final note. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a great take on the prompt. I did not expect something like more like scary like this from it, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And I think it turned out great. Sarah, what did you think of this one?
I thought this one was really cool. I really liked that I felt like I could relate to like the main character in the sense that like if I had the opportunity to drink this tea, like I would also want to break the rules and take it as far as it could go, like because how can you just see like a glimpse of something and not want more? Like I thought it was really well written and like that sense of dread is just really good.
Absolutely. I love that you called out that like kind of relatable motivation there because I agree. It's like if you have that ability to see the future, obviously you're going to push that as far as you can. Certainly, in the case of the prompt here, when you see something that looks like it could be really bad. So I love that. Let's check out a quick excerpt from Out of Leaves. They know they should step back, close it, break whatever this is before it becomes anything else. Instead, they lean in because this feels like the moment just before the tea used to take hold. That suspended second where everything narrowed and sharpened and promised meaning. I just need to see it again. The thing pauses, not stopping so much as attending, the curl of it tilting with a strange, almost human consideration. I didn't get it, they continue, voice unraveling now. I need to know what happens. It drifts closer, and the cold shifts with it, sliding under their skin, settling somewhere behind the eyes. When it touches their lip, it is no longer cold at all, but perfectly, impossibly familiar. The exact temperature the tea had always been, the precise point where it becomes something the body accepts without question. This is what undoes them. Amazing, amazing work from Wendy this week. And now we'll take a look at our runner-up story for last week's Wandering Prompt, which is, of course, Madame Lurk's TikTok Tea by Tamsin G. So with the runner-up here, I'll share my favorite line from the story as opposed to an excerpt. And my favorite line with this one is right before the ending. It reads, "For the first time in a long while, Madame Lurk, tea mistress, vampire frog of the midnight market, felt something deeply unfamiliar. Worry, and not for herself." Really love that, how it sets up that final line there at the end. Overall, this one from Tamsin was great. It was awesome to see Tamsin come back after a break on Substack here. I featured one of her Flash Fiction February stories last week. And with that one and this one, I'm reminded of how Tamsin not only brings forth really believable and rich kind of fantasy worlds and settings, but on top of that, with this story in particular, she also really does action quite well, which is hard to do. And it's interesting that she does action so well as someone who is typically known for their cozy fantasy, right? Like not a whole lot of action in those stories typically, but when Tamsin wants to kick that action up to high gear, she knows exactly how to do it while keeping the reader invested and not wasting too much time with exposition or description. Like it's very well paced. So I noticed that a lot here. And of course, I love this Madame Lurk character, a tea mistress vampire frog, like such a great matchup there as far as characteristics go. Sarah, what did you think of this one?
This one I really loved. I love how like whimsical it is. And honestly, it's one of those stories that makes you really realize how much you just love the idea of prompts because like from your single prompt, like we had Out of Leaves, which is, very um full of dread and anxiety and stuff. And then you come to Madame Lurk's TikTok Tea, and it's like we're talking about a vampire frog, and it's just very whimsical and fantastical. And I just love that. I just thought it was a very like cute story. Obviously, the tea is still questionable, but overall, it was just great. I really loved having those two together this week.
Yeah, yeah, no, you bring up a really good point there. Yeah, it's so interesting. These two stories are a perfect example of how a prompt can be taken in so many different directions. I love that you called that out. And yeah, congratulations again to Wendy and Tamsin for the winning story, the first one posted after last week's Wandering Prompt. And then, of course, as always, I choose a runner-up out of the submissions that come after. So congratulations to Tamsin for being our runner-up this week. And remember, there is a new Wandering Prompt hidden somewhere in the episode. When it'll show up, I don't know. Will I put it in here like last week? Absolutely not. So keep your ears open. And Sarah, thank you for being here once again. We'll see you next week for the next Wandering Prompt Award ceremony.
Thank you for having me as always.
All right. A big thank you to the Prompt Goddess for coming back again this week. I hope everyone is enjoying these new Wandering Prompt segments. I really want them to feel special since these prompts are very competitive, given that the first person to post is the winner. So thanks again to Sarah, and stay tuned for a Wandering Prompt somewhere, as I said, in this episode. Next up, we'll talk about this week's power-up prompts. This week's power-up prompt was a fairy tale. Your setting was the Misty Forest. Your character was the stepchild. And your conflict was a delayed sacrifice. In this segment of the show, I will offer up shorter shoutouts focused on what made each story stand out. Really excited to see what you all did with this prompt, but first, we need to look at a poem for last week's prompt, which was our horror prompt about the surgeon. So let's check out that one first. Our poem from last week's power-up prompt is Angel of Death by Mina Howell. I'm really glad Mina was able to write something for last week's prompt because this poem is excellent. It leverages her iconic style, which incorporates a subtle but powerful rhyme structure with very short, powerful stanzas. And with this poem, Mina tells the story of a surgeon whose family has a perfect record, one that's fueled by a dark secret. Soon, though, the doctor meets their match as a new disease emerges, leading to their first fatal error. And from here, things spiral, and the poem ends on a horrifying final note, with imagery that will stick in your mind long after you're done reading. And as with all of Mina's poetry, the success here comes from how she's able to do a lot with very little in terms of word count. It's measured, intentional, and handcrafted in a way that only an experienced writer, and in this case poet, can accomplish. It's great work. Find that one at the very top of the links in the show notes. And now, let's dive into the stories from this week's prompt, which of course was our fairy tale. We're kicking things off this week with a new entry from Malric Wraithmore titled Black Dahlia Tea, a short story. And so once again, Malric has somehow leveled up again with this piece because they combined elements from 9 prompts. And the prompts here are a mixture of text, images, and even music as well. I can see how all that variety allows a writer like Malric to blend them together, but I have to stress this is not easy. It requires an incredible amount of focus and organization. It's really impressive stuff that Malric can pull this off. In particular, Malric also used both the Wandering Prompt and the Power-Up Prompt in this story. You'll notice that the T from the Wandering Prompt makes an appearance here, and what really stood out to me with this piece is how Malric created this magical, mysterious, almost ominous atmosphere that you would expect from a dark fairy tale. And not only that, but there's poetic stanzas inserted throughout the piece that adds even more of that nice fairy tale feel that I was hoping to see from this week's entries. And of course, Malric's endings always leave an impact. This one is excellent in that it mirrors some of the language from the first part of the story, thus closing that narrative loop in a very satisfying way. Great stuff, as always. Next up for this week's power-up prompt is The Cursed of the Forlorn Forest by Gregory Blair. And right off the bat, I love how Gregory opens this story. The first couple lines read, I was the other, the unexpected, the unwanted, the stepchild, but so was she. Very nice. Those lines immediately grab my attention, and as the story goes on, I love how Gregory pulls out specific lines, almost like pieces of a poem. You get these paragraphs, and then between them there are standalone words or sentences on their own lines, and it creates this emphasis on those parts of the story by separating them from the rest of the text. It's a really cool effect, something that I've used personally in my work, and it really works here. The story itself is also excellent. I love the way that it builds out this dark fairy tale world. Gregory introduces us to a forest spirit called the Demon Fairy, and I really like this take on that aspect of the prompt because the name alone commands a lot of respect and fear. And the ending is very unexpected, but quite intriguing. It leaves the door open for more, and I, for one, hope that Gregory comes back to this world because I would read more of this in a heartbeat. Next up, we have a story from my Taco Nemesis, which is a title I just came up with. And I, of course, am referring to the wildly talented J.M. Gooding, who entered this week's Power Up prompt with a story called The Girl and the Queen of the Grove. J.M.'s story here opens with some superb scene setting. I really love the vivid imagery. There's a line early on that reads, "The night moves as if the hour belongs to him." It's just such a good setup, and it's very immersive. I was already grounded in the world right as I got into it after the first few lines. My favorite thing about this entry, though, is how it builds momentum. There's an energy and flow to the writing that builds and builds as the story goes on. It's a combination of short, impactful lines and just this constant sense of motion, like everything is building to something. And once the story does reach its climax, I was on the edge of my seat, wide-eyed, reading as fast as I could. JM is great at this too. He knows how to expertly control the pacing of a story, when to hit the gas, and when to tap the brakes. And the emotion too here, another thing he does well, is very, very good. In this story, JM leaves us with a hollow ache in our chest by the end. A revelation that is both shocking and crushing in equal measure. And if you can't tell, I love this one. And I also noticed the note at the end about how he says he didn't subvert the prompt for once. Listen, though, I will take any J.M. Gooding story I can get, subverted or otherwise, but please, check out this one. It's really good. Links in the show notes. Next up, we have A Year and a Day by Mary Ellen Brady. This entry opens with some beautiful world building that sets everything up perfectly. It's the line that comes after the opening segment, though, that really got me. And that line reads, "She was the king's mistake made flesh. The court had never forgiven her for existing." I mean, what a line. Wow. The way that Mary Ellen molds the stepchild Issa into a sympathetic character here is masterfully done. In just a few lines, I was on her side and rooting for her. As the story goes on, too, Mary Ellen shows us why fairy tales have endured throughout human history. It's because of the lessons they offer, the takeaways that help us understand ourselves better and the world that we live in. Yes, this here is a fictional world, but Mary Ellen reminds us that real lessons come from meaningful fiction. Here, the story is about finding the place where you belong, the place that appreciates you, the place that welcomes you. It's powerful stuff, and I love how the ending zooms out to offer up the legend of this place that emerged from the story itself. It creates that perfect fairy tale feel and solidifies the story forever within this realm's history. Now, I knew Mary Ellen would do well with this prompt, but she somehow managed to surpass all my expectations once again. Beautiful work. Next up, we've got The Half-Sun Returns by C.J. Knight, aka Terrifying Tales. The story starts strong here, and it gets better as it goes on. CJ is so good with imagery, and this piece is a perfect example. The descriptions are all very rich and detailed, but not overly rendered. It's a nice balance. And the dialogue is pitch perfect as well. Our main character, Kale, injects his rage and anger into each line, and you can feel that determination in the way that he speaks. The conversation he has with the mist early on in the story illustrates all of this beautifully. It's fantastic characterization wrapped in some beautiful writing. And the ending is so good too. Honestly, between this and the Devine story from CJ that I mentioned earlier, plus the Infernoverse one that he did for Mina's World, I gotta say, I need to see this author do a series with a dark fantasy setting like this, because I guarantee you it would be incredible. Next up, we've got The One Who Came Before by Mike McClure, aka Every Root, Every Thorn. This one is really cool because it's set in the same universe as the classic King Arthur stories. We get familiar names like Arthur Pendragon and Morgana, paired with some truly eloquent and epic writing. And the style, like I said, really stood out here for me. There are a lot of lines that really jumped off the page, but one example I'll give is a line that read, "The ends of each branch move like tendrils pushing the beads of an abacus." And that is, of course, right before our protagonist finds out they have a year and a day before their debt is due, as per the prompt. Now, I love the connection here to real myth and legend. When you combine that with this really nice, very epic writing, it feels like a fairy tale pulled directly from history in the best way possible. Great work from Mike this week. Next up in our Power Up Prompt Stories this week is Appointed Night by Rebecca Watson. And I mean, holy cow, Rebecca really brought her A game with this week's entry. The way she sets up the atmosphere and the characters in this story is phenomenal. We get some amazing imagery, and then early on, she hits us with this nice emotional gut punch. And I say nice, but it hurts. Not only that, but she follows it up with a twist on the prompt. The children in the story were the ones offered to the forest spirit. In this case, they represent that delayed sacrifice from the prompt. Now, listeners, I'm not exaggerating when I say that my jaw hit the floor at this part of the story. I swear, M. Night Shyamalan has nothing on Rebecca Watson when it comes to twists. This was a brilliant narrative move. And once the forest spirit comes to collect later in the story, we are treated to this tense roller coaster as the children try to escape and see if they can reason with it. It's a wild ride, and I loved the ending. I won't spoil it, but suffice to say, Rebecca took the prompt and ran with it in ways that I did not expect, leaving me truly impressed. This is a must-read entry in my book, so please find a link in the show notes. And next up this week, we have a story from Mina Howell titled Patchwork Heart. So I'm really excited to talk about this one because with this piece, Mina has made her narration debut. Now, she's obviously been doing her podcast for 50 episodes now, but I can't recall a time when she's narrated a whole story like this. And dear Lord, I wish my first time narrating was this good. Mina's practice on the podcast has clearly paid off. The speed and cadence of her reading is perfect. That's something that I struggled with myself early on. I just read way too fast, and that was what all the feedback said. Another thing Mina did really well with the audio here was the sound effects. Not only did she use these to enhance immersion, but the timing of them was superb as well. A great example is a part of the story where as she's talking, you can hear pages being turned underneath that main narration. I love little details like that. And the story itself is fantastic too. It's an emotional and dark fairy tale that blends the elements of the prompt beautifully alongside Mina's iconic writing style. It's one of those entries that offers the reader an entire experience across the audio and the text. I highly recommend it. And speaking of audio, our next power-up prompt story this week comes from a veteran voice actor and narrator here on Substack that you may recognize. That's right, my friends. We've got our first ever power-up prompt entry from the Anthony Michael Malick, and I am so excited to talk about this. So right off the bat, we gotta mention the narration. Anthony's audio is truly next level. The way he uses music to set the scene and drive home that ending is so perfect, and the narration is exceptional in terms of both the delivery and the audio quality. This man is a bona fide professional, and I'm reminded of this every time I hear his work. With this story too, I love how the scope was focused. Anthony sets the stage and then zooms in to deliver a truly dark fairy tale. And once that dialogue kicks in, Anthony brings out some of the most terrifying voices that I've heard in a while. It's gripping and beautifully produced. It's a crime that this is available for free. Anthony could charge for this, and no one would bat an eye. Certainly not me. So let's all show him some gratitude by giving him a listen and restacking it, because it is a spectacular entry for this week's prompt and a beautiful debut. Find a link to this and all this week's entries in the show notes. And once more, a thank you to everyone who submitted stories this week. I mean, the quality on offer here always is amazing, but this week really blew me out of the water. Amazing work to everyone who submitted. And according to the poll, it looks like next week's prompt may be image-based, which I've never done before. And I think I've got a cool idea on how to make it work with the 3 elements. So stay tuned for next week's prompt, launching tomorrow, Saturday, April 11th. In the meantime, let's get over to this week's writing discussion after a quick mindful moment. Hey there, this is Chill Bradley, here with this week's mindful moment. Here's a quote to consider. Creative entitlement simply means believing that you are allowed to be here, and that merely by being here, you are allowed to have a voice and a vision of your own. Elizabeth Gilbert. I love this quote because it cuts right to the heart of the matter. You don't need to justify your existence. You don't have to apologize for wanting a voice. You're allowed to be here just as much as anyone else. Your accomplishments should be celebrated, but they don't define you. From the moment you started writing stories, you became an author. From the moment you started drawing or painting, you became an artist. And the same goes for narrating, for voice acting, for graphic design, and any other creative medium. The act of doing it means that you're in. You can now give yourself that title. There's no secret test to pass, no committee to please, no bar that you have to clear. Some of those things may come up when you seek to do it professionally, but outside of that, doing the thing makes you the thing. Point blank. If you write and publish stories, you're an author. It's as simple as that. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. And we're back. This week's writing discussion was about what happens when we have to kill off one of our characters. I did this recently, and it hurt real bad. It was what the story demanded, though. And like I've done in the past, I wrote this character a farewell story, and I think it's something nice that writers can do to remember and honor their characters for what they did during their time. It's something I'll continue to do anytime a major character unfortunately meets their end. So, this past Wednesday, I opened a thread in my subscriber chat and asked you all to share your thoughts. Now you know the drill. If you take the time to respond, I'll take the time to read your answers on the show. So, let's see what everyone had to say about this tough part of being a writer. All right, and first up, Mina Howell says, "Why would you do this to me?" And then she has the laughing, crying emojis. The only time I've done it, the story just kind of told me that that's what was going to happen. So I was dragged through it kicking and screaming. I really liked what you did when you killed one of your characters, and so I ended up giving that character a funeral in the last part of the series. This is an official tissue alert. Oh man, and I know the timing here is brutal, Mina, because you were doing this, I know, with your series as well. But Mina brings up a really good point, and also she mentions the tissue alert, which is something we've been discussing in the community, which is of course a way to warn readers that they will need tissues. And yeah, like Mina said, I think with me too, it's one of those things where you kind of come to the realization that this is what needs to happen with that character. And you might wrestle with it, you might put it off, but once you know, and it sucks. But, like I said, I like to make sure that their death means something, and it seems like Mina took a similar approach, so interested to see how that plays out in her series. Next up, J. Allen Winchester says, "I've always looked at the death of a character as purpose. Why are they dying? What does this do to serve the story or them? Some stories are heavy, like my Dodecatheon saga, and the world is not kind to those who we feel deserve better. Others like to show death as a natural part of the cycle of life, and I try to show that in the story as a theme to encourage those going through grief. I lost several people close to me in a short period of time in my older teens, so I developed a relationship with death that affected my writing. Does it still hurt to see characters I spent time with pass? Hell yes. I had to take a month away from writing after finishing the first draft of one of my manuscripts. I was tired and cried as I wrote through it. Editing was like driving a stake through my chest every time I got to that scene. But I knew why they perished. There was no way they were going to survive the clash, and sacrifices brought time and pushed characters to act where they would never have before. And that is the biggest takeaway. Death has to have a place, at least for me. Sometimes it's not fair, but there is a purpose for it. Sometimes it is time for that character to exit the stage, and that can be a good thing. Sometimes the character makes a choice we didn't, and the story takes a turn that leaves us as stunned as the readers. Looking at a few of my own that I'm still cross with, living rent-free in my mind palace for eternity regardless. I think if we remember that all things have a time and a season to begin, thrive, and pass away, it can make these moments in our writer's journey easier to process. Easier doesn't mean easy, though. We'll still grieve our cycles for the ones we're really attached to, but that makes them so much more real in the end, right? There's my nickel of input. Jaden, as always, thank you. That was incredible. I have nothing to add. Some incredible points there, and that is precisely how I try to treat this aspect of writing. So, phenomenal response from Jaden. Let's see what we got next. J.M. Gooding says, "Yeah, I feel the idea of the story demanding a sacrifice. I just killed off someone in Stillwater, my post-apocalyptic epic serial. One of the characters introduced in Chapter 1. Not the first offing of a character, but the most emotional for sure. While the group faced danger constantly, it was always kind of safe. There was probably a little bit of plot armor built in, a little too much competency. It was always the plan to kill this character off, but I kind of grew attached to them. I think I made it worse for the reader by doing it off-screen, too. It forces the reader to sit and watch the reactions of the other characters as they listen and hear the shotgun cock, the shot, the heavy splash of the body. They all know exactly what it means, they all know it had to be done, but that never makes it any better. But more to the point, it drives the plot in a way I'm not ready to explain just yet. Read it and see. But more than that, it reminds us that the world is still a dangerous place, and one stupid little mistake can come with a huge cost." Wonderful. Love that. Yeah, J.M. Gooding's serial, Stillwater, I have only read the first chapter, but it is so good. I love the premise. I love the concept, and it really pulled me in from the get-go there. So shout out to J.M. Great answer here. Definitely check out that series. I am simultaneously not looking forward and also looking forward to the scene he described, because it sounds like it was really well written, but I also feel like it's gonna be an emotional gut punch. So thank you again, JM, for that answer. Next up, Daniel Coates says, death is something that must be handled carefully unless in a comedy or satirical story. Because if the prevalence of fake-out deaths, it's something of an arms race in media between the fake-out and the real deaths to see which can be more real. That said, I'm generally with J. Allen Winchester here, with deaths in my stories serving purposes. There's an upcoming death in my serial that I'm really worried about getting right, though, and I'm sure it's going to be really hard to fight it, to get it right when I get there. Yeah, that's tough. That's real tough. And of course, in the chat thread here, Mina follows up saying, hold up in The Water Thief. And Daniel does confirm that that's the series he's referring to. So yeah, The Water Thief, by the way, for those unaware, is a really good series too from Daniel Coates. And specifically, that series did start as a power-up prompt entry. I love mentioning that whenever I can. So next up, Every Root, Every Thorn says, as long as it has a purpose, it can be really impactful. When I was letting the Zhao in He Feared Anyway do it, it was supposed to be in the same vein as the Buddhist monks who set themselves on fire as the ultimate form of protest. Death with a purpose is the only way to go. And I couldn't agree more. Very good points there. Next up, Emil Ottoman says, killing a character must be a consequence, or it must be utterly nonsense. The first one fits logic in a story, the second fits how life really works. Sometimes it's nice to throw some of that in there. Aside from that, killing a character is something the story either demands to be whole or doesn't. That's all. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is that black and white. And I also agree with Emil's points here about how sometimes in real life, it just doesn't make any sense. And that should be reflected in fiction, at least from time to time, because it is realistic. Next up, Robert C. Worstel says, as I farm during the day, death becomes a necessary companion. Some plants are annual, some perennial. Cows live about 14 years, dogs and cats maybe 12. Some insects are 3 months. Some flowers bloom for a few weeks, then disappear until next year. That said, I've written a couple of books which take up that subject of death itself. In one, a treasured family guard dog passes on, and this gives me a chance to create another fictional character as a replacement, even as we got another dog IRL. So, I'm voting for not detachment for your characters, but rather celebrating the seasons of life. To every season, turn, turn, turn. And I think today that having death itself show up as a character has been a great way to reveal more about the characters in the WIP. Funerals, yes, but wakes, definitely. A celebration of continuing life regardless. That's beautiful. And as, someone, I obviously am not a farmer myself, but I love seeing Robert's notes and photos from his farm, and his input here is incredible. I mean, I don't want to get too emotional because I am a animal lover and I have dogs and cats, but he's right. Everything does have a set lifespan and a season. And so ultimately, as writers, being able to grapple with that while also celebrating their life in any way that we can is important. So that's really nice input from Robert. Next up, Anton Anderson says, sometimes you kill characters because it's cool, a last stand against a horde of enemies or something. Other times you do this because without a price, the message would be hollow or a victory would feel less deserved or meaningful. Occasionally you do this to set up a sequel. And of course, you can mix those reasons. My first novel, The Seeker's Soul Ties, has the death of a major character which drives a big part of the story. My second novel, The Seeker's Kieran, also has a death of a major character. This death illustrates one of the points of the book and sets up a future sequel. My third novel, The Seeker's Perrin Peters, has deaths of the baddies, deaths of people Perrin has to investigate, and deaths of secondary characters that set up the upcoming direct sequel. And yeah, Anton brings up a good point. Sometimes a character's death can be, as he said, it can be cool. It's like a final stand. It's a epic sacrifice, something they'll be remembered for. And that is a nice approach, I think, to making a character's death feel like it has impact. And as Anton said, setting up the sequel, setting up the next part of the story, driving it forward is also, I think, a very valid reason to take this approach with a character when their time has come. Next up, Mark Armstrong says, I kill them off without a second thought. If I see more than 100 readers camped on my doorstep wearing black armbands, I figure out a way to bring them back. And of course, Mark's comments always make me laugh. I love it when he shows up. So thank you, Mark, for that little bit of levity here. Next up, our final response here is from Esser Marrow, who says, I write mostly horror these days, and death is always lurking around the periphery of most of it. But I also know that the most horrifying death happens to characters I have come to really like and care about, so writing those scenes are hard, but wholly necessary. However, I do so enjoy when I get to write a disgusting, gory kill scene for a nasty bully or some other rotten character I've poured my own frustrations with the cruelties of humanity into. And what a great way to end this discussion. Yes. Esser is spot on, because it is tough killing off characters when it comes to characters that we love, heroes, stuff like that. But something that I don't think we've really talked about yet in this discussion until we got to Esser's input here is how satisfying it is for the villain, or for the bully, as she said, to finally get what's coming to them. I mean, that is in that case, let's have fun with it, right? It reminds me of I've seen this everywhere at this point in my life, but many years ago, for the first time, I had seen a coffee mug that basically, it had a pen on it that was like, there was some blood on the end of the pen's tip, and it said, don't mess with a writer because they'll write you into their next story. And I love that joke. I know it's everywhere. You can find merch of it. It's not like nothing original at this point, but it is still very funny. And to Esser's point, don't mess with writers, because we do have fun killing off the bad guys, especially when they got it coming. All right. Well, thank you everyone who submitted to this week's writing discussion. That was a great discussion. And next week, stay tuned on Wednesday for a new thread in my subscriber chat. And remember, if you take the time to respond, I'll take the time to read it on the show. All right. Next up is our featured guest interview. This week, my guest is... Wandering Prompt, Episode 64. A group of astronauts in space witnesses nuclear war on Earth. They are now the last human beings in the universe. Write a story or poem about what happens next. 1,000 words or less. First to post a link in the comments of the show wins. A runner-up will also be selected from the entries. Good luck. Oh, sorry about that, everybody. My mic messed up there for a second, but I think we're back in business. Okay. Anyway, this week's featured guest on the show is an author and highly experienced professional writer named Trevor Cohen. Trevor has a very impressive career under his belt, but in the last year, he has reconnected with his love of creative writing and is now publishing short fiction here on Substack. As I mentioned in the intro, he also recently hosted a successful event called Day of the Writer, in which folks shared posts about their daily lives as creatives. Now, we'll talk about all of this and much, much more in the full interview, so grab yourself a drink, get comfortable, and let's get started. All right, everybody, and this week on the Saved as Draft podcast, I'm very excited to welcome to the show Trevor Cohen. Trevor, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Bradley. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, well, let's start off by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and your creative journey thus far.
Yeah, so I've been a writer for my entire career, and actually as long as I can remember. I would say the heart, and I think this rings true for a lot of us, of my creative self and creative core comes from world building that goes back to really as long as I can remember. I think my parents told me the first world I built, I was like 2 or 3 years old. The only memories that I have of it is that there were dinosaurs there, and it got over 1,000 degrees, and it was called Hotland. I even remember imagining my preschool on this little submarine, and we were controlling this submarine through the little toys and toy houses in the preschool room. So those kind of imaginary worlds never went away from me. Um, but I will say I suppressed them for quite a while as went through my writing career. And writing for was felt like a most natural way to bring those worlds to life.
Mm,
But I felt like I had to be a nonfiction writer first. Had to develop some something rooted in facts or journalism or some something other than those imaginary worlds. And I kind of discredited them. I said, "Oh, I'll get back to them later."
mm,
And so I tried to be a journalist. And after after a few unpaid internships, was like, nah, I think I'm going to try. I was living in San Francisco at the time. I think I'm going to try working for a tech company.
mm,
And so I sold my soul and worked for several different companies, a startup writing travel guides for a vacation rental company. We were covering Orlando, Myrtle Beach, uh, uh, and Maui, and yeah, completely different world of content writing. And then I worked for Google
mm,
for about 5.5 years as a content strategist. I created educational content for their
mm.
ads platform.
Okay.
And on the side, serendipitously, I had a roommate who was a professor of environmental science,
Hmm.
and we teamed up to work on a book about sustainability together, and that eventually became Bright Green Future. And I mean, I was full time during that project. It took like 5 years to actually write this book, but we interviewed like 200 people. I
Wow.
took a trip at one point across the U.S. to interview farmers and ranchers who are working on sustainable farming practices.
Mm.
And I remember this one point, I got pulled over by Highway Patrol in South Dakota and I was going too fast. And the cop was like, what are you doing here? You have a California license plate. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm interviewing farmers and ranchers for this book. And he was like, you sure you're not smuggling drugs? I was like, I promise.
What a
He
leap.
was like, I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I finished that book
Hmm.
in 2021 and did a bunch of events and promotion around it with environmental groups like
Mm-hmm.
local Sierra Club chapters, Citizens Climate Lobby, put together some kind of speaker series around sustainable design thinking. Um, and after that all wrapped up, I kind of burnt out
Okay.
of that type of writing, of gathering interviews, creating narratives out of interviews. Really, really fun. But I was like, you know what? I could actually just make all that shit up. I
It's
don't
true.
have to try to like extract all, I mean, well, you're doing it right now, extract all these quotes and stuff from people to craft a narrative, and it doesn't have to be based on reality,
Right.
or based on reality, but it doesn't have to stick to the facts. And so I was like, shit, I've been ignoring these worlds that I've had for so long, kind of in the background of imaginary worlds. And so I was like, I'm gonna write a draft of a novel.
Mm.
And so I had this sci-fi terraform planets and moons in our solar system kind of world that had been gestating for a long time. And so I wrote a first draft of it. Um, really powerful experience just to write it. But the funny thing is I get to the last chapter and I'm like, okay, now I'm finally good enough. This is good enough to be the entire novel, but
Mm.
I've written everything in the past. And then I started writing short stories based on that world. And by the last short story, and I was like, okay, now this is finally good enough to be something I would publish. And then I started writing flash fiction, and the last flash fiction I wrote was like, okay, now this is finally good enough to publish. So it's kind of this like almost 2 year period of just learning how to get comfortable writing fiction because it was very different than nonfiction for me. Just to get comfortable writing dialogue and scenes, and kind of a shame I went 10 years with as in a writing career without really doing that. But these last like 3 to 4 years, I've been really focused on that. Been taking a lot of different courses
Mm,
to develop my skills.
hmm
I've done a lot of critique groups. I did the Speculative Fiction Writers Association critique group. They meet online, and that was a really big growth experience for me of sharing stories that I'd written and giving people feedback. Yeah, critique has really, I think, is something I really love to do. And I actually consider it to be an act of love, giving critique to someone else and really seeing how you can bring out the best of someone else's work, I think is really powerful. And then getting that back is a really humbling experience,
hmm
really big growth experience. And so now I'm finally actually publishing stuff on Substack, submitting stuff to journals. Yeah. And so that's kind of where I'm at, my journey into fiction and yeah, where I'm at now.
Good stuff. No, I really appreciate that. It's an interesting journey that you've been on. I feel like mine is similar in the sense that, you know, I was very young and I decided I wanted to be a writer, but everybody tells you, well, you need to do something that makes money, right? So that's where you
Yeah.
know, you get pushed towards like the corporate kind of writing or the technical writing and, you know, the nonfiction stuff because that's what quote unquote pays, right? But you know, as
Hmm.
storytellers, you know, there's always that pull to come back to the creative side and really dive into, you know, kind of unique worlds and stuff. Um, so I love that your journey has brought you back to that. Uh,
No.
that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So you mentioned obviously sci-fi is one of the genres you work on. Are there any other genres that you kind of like lean towards, or are you primarily a sci-fi writer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you asked me a year ago, I would say I write space opera, medium soft sci-fi, uh, and maybe some alien stuff. I wrote a draft of a novel that's about an alien that feeds on emotional vibrations
Hmm.
and um, lands at a hippie town in America, a small hippie town, and is trying to gather good vibes to repower the brothership to go save his people from like an unfeeling species that are kind of like zapping their emotional vibes. Anyway, so
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I was purely in this sci-fi realm, but through honestly courses that I've taken recently on writing, I've gotten more into literary fiction, and with a little bit of speculative flavor in there.
hmm
So yeah, I'm getting maybe a little bit away from my core worlds that, as I mentioned before, were mostly kind of sci-fi worlds in my head.
Yeah.
Um, and I do want to come back to that, but I've been drawn more towards like literary spec fiction at this point, and kind of like little cracks in looking at little cracks in the fabric of reality that are connected to characters and exploring that through short stories primarily right now.
Okay. Okay. No, I
Mhm.
like that. I like that a lot. That sounds really interesting. Yeah, I wanted to ask you too about, you know, you mentioned world building is kind of that first thing that drew you to like creativity.
Mhm.
I love that story that you told about, you know, when you were really young, about kind of, you know, building out this whole world with what you had in front of you. So when it comes to world building, how do you approach that? You know, when it comes to like say like a short story versus like a longer work, what's kind of your unique approach to kind of creating a believable world within the space that you have?
Mhm. Yeah. So one of the things I noticed really quickly in writing stories and flash fiction is that you have so much less room for world building.
Right.
And so it has to be, yeah, really closely tied to the character's objective. And yeah, you don't have much time for making up lore and little fun flourishes and words, which is the stuff that is so fun to do.
hmm
Just in this daydreaming state, creating worlds. I most of my world building happens in the insomnia hours of the night,
That's fair.
when I can't sleep and
Yep.
things are my mind is like, oh, you want to go to bed? Well, how about like we invent a new planet?
Right.
So, um, but yeah, I would say now in terms of world building, I've kind of been trying to do the opposite. Before I was like, I create a world and now, and then I would be like, okay, now I need to create characters for it and a story for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that makes sense within that world.
Yeah.
And how do we explore this kind of vast space, maybe through little vignettes and snippets. But now I've been trying to focus more on what's the core character desire, what are the choices they have to make, what are the core consequences, and then building a world that enhances and reflects that.
Got it.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of how I've been shifting recently, and have done. Yeah, but I do have a potential serial that I've been developing, which
Oh,
I spent quite a bit of time doing some just free writing, world building, asked myself some just core questions related to the world and how it connects to the character, and how the character fits into the world. But I'm bummed I missed Hallie's course on world building. It seems super cool, but hope to
mm,
do that, to better develop the craft of it too, because that's actually something I haven't gotten too much into. It's just kind of been an innate thing.
sure, sure. No, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So diving a level deeper then, when you're working on your fiction specifically, what are some of kind of the core themes and takeaways that you hope readers get from reading your work? What's some of those messages that you have in there?
Yeah, well, I really I'm currently in this phase of writing stories about characters who are on the verge of figuring their shit out
Okay.
or their world completely falling apart.
Okay.
Which is, how I feel a lot of the time. It's like, oh, I'm so close to figure it. Like, I almost got the pieces put together to do the thing,
Hmm.
but it actually might be just completely flawed, and this whole house of cards is going to collapse. So yeah, that is a lot of stories I'm writing now, have that kind of theme where the characters are on ground, but like maybe about to do something cool.
Hmm.
Um, Another thing I really like is strangers, like the allure, the seduction, and the danger of the stranger.
Okay.
Um, I I would say for most of my life, I had pretty intense social anxiety,
Hmm.
up until about the age of 32, and then a bunch of different stuff happened, and like this kind of switch went on changed in my brain,
Hmm.
and I just stopped fearing strangers or social interactions. It was
Hmm.
very strange. I mean, a bunch of stuff happened, but suffice it to say that like that fear switched to fascination.
Hmm.
And I kind of I love going to random places and having kind of strange interactions with random people sometimes. And so yeah, I like stories that I feel like a stranger, somebody who you've never met before has this just crazy potential for something to go either way. So I like exploring that in my fiction. Yeah, I, what else do I have going on? Yeah, I would say that is, yeah, a big thing I'm focused on right now.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, both of those things are incredibly relatable. And again, from my perspective, like I said, very relatable as well. Because I also kind of, struggled with sort of social anxiety until very recently in my life. So I can definitely connect to that. And then also, I love what you said about characters who are like right on the verge of figuring their shit out. It's like, yeah, I feel that. It's like you're always this close to being caught up, right?
Oh, yeah, I thought of another. Oh, I
Yeah.
really like writing scenes where two characters are completely misunderstanding what the other is saying.
Okay.
Um, but through their misinterpretations of the other character's words,
Hmm.
they come to like some sort of flawed but mutual misunderstanding of what the other
Interesting.
character said.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I really like how we're all kind of coming from different places and all trying to get each other.
Hmm.
But we don't quite understand each other, but we have to come to some sort of understanding as a human in order for our worlds to make sense. in our life to not be totally chaotic. So we end up oftentimes coming to like a mutual misunderstanding of each other, which
Right.
I find interesting, and I like making it more explicit so the
Mhm.
reader can see that these characters are both not communicating in a way that, you know, they intend to, or not
Mm,
being interpreted in the way that they intend to
right.
come across.
Yeah, no, I like that. I
Mhm.
like that. Again, it's a very relatable thing. Like it happens all the time, right? And so and that's really important, I think, in storytelling is to have that those kind of relatable elements that help people kind of connect to the characters in the world. So that makes a lot of sense. I like that a lot. Um, so for people who are just now kind of discovering you and your work, my next question here is how long have you been on Substack? And obviously, I'd love to know what you think of the community, but if you could give us too, just kind of an overview of what's available right now on your Substack, that'd be nice as well. Just kind of a quick tour, if you will.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've been on Stack for a year.
Mm,
I think I started last April when I posted my first piece. Um, yeah, I've kind of been, it took me like, I want to say like 8 months just to figure out what I was doing on here,
fair.
like
Yeah.
how to like how what I should be posting, like what kind of pieces resonate, like even just understanding how to find my community of people that I resonated with,
Hmm.
and whose work that I really enjoyed reading. Um, yeah, so it took me like honestly a little bit feeling like I'm banging my head against the wall, like putting stuff out there and not getting any response,
Yeah.
and not really like understanding how how to go about approaching it. But I think one of the most helpful things was that I took cues from seeing how uh, successful people on the platform like
Sure.
you, and also I think Alex Schiffman was a really good inspiration for the way that he shows up on the platform
Yeah.
and just being so generous with promoting other people and hyping other people's work. That really inspired me. I was like, you know, if anything, this is an incredible mutual aid community,
Hmm.
um, to hyping each other and supporting each other's wins, and giving each other like good helpful feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was re what really shifted for me. And then I kind of one day mapped out like, okay, what are the kind of stories that I want to tell, around these kind of themes, and then just made it a goal of publishing once a week. So I mostly publish shorter pieces, like um, between 500 to 1,000 words. They're kind of like short flash pieces. I have some longer ones that are I have like a longer speculative one, that the plot of it is a woman on the way to a important conference meeting, at her corporate job, steps in goose poop, on the way to the meeting,
Uh-huh.
and ends up causing an existential, societal crisis.
Wow. Okay. I like that premise a lot. You have
So
my
I like
yeah, yeah, yeah. You have my attention with that one.
so that one is called Why I Never Walk on the Grass.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, and I have a lot of pieces that and I have like some shorter, yeah, a lot of shorter, kind of character driven pieces. And I do potentially want to publish a serial soon.
Yeah.
I'm, yeah, thinking about it, and how little intimidated by putting out like that much content. But yeah, I have, yeah, these kind of shorter little, they're full complete stories. But yeah, another one is You're Making My Wife Uncomfortable is another story,
Okay.
that is about someone in a mall who's a random stranger comes over and starts giving his wife a massage,
Mm,
and he must figure out what is going on and like how to. He's kind of like excusing the entire thing and trying to be really accommodating, but also not understanding what like whether or not who's at fault and who's making who uncomfortable.
mm,
And is it the fact that he's uncomfortable with the massage that is the wrong thing?
mm.
And so yeah, just kind of like yeah, I like exploring this kind of head trip that we give ourselves around like should this be uncomfortable to me? Is it me? Is it them? Um, yeah, I like exploring that through fiction. Yeah, so if you want short, hard-hitting pieces, that's what you'll currently find. Humorous. I like to blend in a lot of comedy into my work. Yeah, so if you want these short, humorous pieces uh, with a little bit of speculative flavor in there, that's what you find on my Substack right now.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I like that. Very interesting premises in some of those examples that you gave us. Do you have kind of a an overall sort of kind of idea or pitch for that serial that you're potentially doing? I'm curious, like if you wanted to share any details on what that might be about.
Yeah, I guess I'll blackmail myself. Um, it's funny. I was in uh, a Shut Up and Write group. I do these like regular accountability writing session groups. And one of my friends we were talking about, somebody was describing solar punk to them,
Mm,
kind of this like hopeful, ecotopia, futurist, sci-fi-ish stories. Um, and he misinterpreted solar and he was like, "Oh, is that like you talking about like Coca-Cola commercial?" And he thought she said soda punk. Like
oh,
yeah, like soda
okay,
punk.
okay, yeah,
Um, and I think this story is I guess I'm calling it like grim dark soda pop punk.
okay.
Um,
I like it.
and it takes place in a far future where all basically AI, it's a very bleak future where AI runs everything. Humans are basically kind of just hanging around doing nothing. All food is provided via these extruders. Like the story takes place in front of a an ATM machine that prints fried chicken.
Mm,
Um, and it's a little bit like the Lorax in
okay.
where there the main character is a woman named Blueberry Pie, and she was a food scientist that developed the Eats ATM that prints this Texas fried chicken.
Right.
Um, and half of the story takes place with this kid coming up to her in this world, and she's telling stories of how this world got created,
Mm,
and kind of her misadventures as a food scientist, like whipping up all these like weird ultra processed foods that with kind of a speculative sci-fi bent. That ended up creating this very bleak existence in which kind of humans are just kind of limping along with these mega corporations just pumping out pumping out food and keeping us entertained and alive. And so it goes back between this like past where she's kind of an anti-hero talking about these stories of her inventing these really cool things, but also being a terrible person at the same time, through the way that she's navigating the corporate sphere and screwing people over. Um, and yeah, so kind of goes between these two glorious and bleak time stuff. And yeah, I guess a little bit of Willy Wonka thrown in there,
Okay.
inventing everlasting gobstopper-like things. Um, and the mystery of a potential subatomic particle called the Lixton, which is this crave particle
Mm,
that potentially may or may not have been discovered by this main character that may be the thing to bring back drive into human society.
interesting.
Because humanity in this world has kind of like lost all of its ambition and drive to do anything.
Mm, okay. All right. Really, really good premise. I love the sound of it. And yeah, I can see the potential for an ongoing serial there, especially like you said, the different stories that can be told within that world. That's really interesting. I like that a lot. So for my next question here, I wanted to talk about a recent event that you hosted that I also participated in. It
Yeah.
was it was called Day of the Blank Writer. So for me, I was the everything writer is the piece that I submitted. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that event, kind of if you could share sort of what inspired it, and then kind of give us an overview of how it went from your perspective.
Yeah. So it's yeah, interesting story. I kind of like how it happened. It started as an open invitation that came out of and that I attended at a local literary festival. I live in Rotterdam in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at this event, it was, I guess, kind of a workshop, open event. The facilitators invited everyone in the audience to just come up and tell an impromptu story.
Mm.
So it could be anything, but it was supposed to be impromptu, just off the cuff story from your life, as if we're just in a living room with our friends telling a story. Of course, I couldn't do that, and I definitely prepared. And about, about an hour, 2 hours before the event, I wrote just quickly like what my day was like. I had
Sure.
gone to hosted a writing group that day, biking around town in the Netherlands, basically putting off doing my freelance work. Um, and yeah, so then I memorized it on the way there because I wanted to challenge myself to start committing some pieces to heart and then performed it there, and it was really a cool space that they created. There was music playing over it, and then yeah, after that I performed it again and kind of refined it a little bit, and was really just inspired by this open invitation to the audience to share just a little slice of your life. And actually, most of my writing community is in person, of people that I've just met in writing groups and classes and events.
Cool.
And so I feel like I have a better sense of what experience on the day to day through that in-person writing community. Um, but I felt like that was something that I really wanted to connect with more on people on Substack. I know we share little snippets of our daily lives through Substack, but I would say it's mostly fiction. And so yeah, I just wanted to spread that invitation to folks that I interact with on Substack, because I feel like it is such a powerful thing to feel connected to the world behind someone's world, and what inspires the art we create.
Right.
I feel like it is really powerful to feel that and a nice bonding experience as part of a community. Um, and so the first step, I just reached out to few folks who I interacted with most and had a good relationship with, Guy Craig, Alex Schiffman, um, and I got like a just yeah positive response. It kind of surprised me, to be honest. People were like, "Oh, this is a cool idea,"
Yeah.
and then so I reached out to another set of people, Sandalore Sykes, Pablo Baez,
Mm.
and I actually remember when Sandalore responded to me saying that she was in and wanted to do this. And I was literally in a cafe and I like got up out of my chair and I was like, yes, 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 and like started dancing. And I
Nice.
freaked a lot of people out.
Yeah. I love
Like,
that.
what the fuck is this American doing?
That's too funny.
Yeah. After that, I was like, okay. And I just kind of went ham on it and was like, okay, let's I looked to see if we could get 50 initial people,
Mm,
invite 50 initial people to seed it. Um, and then yeah, put together the materials for it and then yeah, just invited a lot of people. And yeah, really, really inspired by the incredible, the incredible talent that came out of it. It's like I wrote this piece that I was proud of, and then it's just like people far exceeded exceeded what I had written. And that, yeah, I mean, it really touched me is to see just like how much creativity and talent is in this community. And yeah, I learned so much from people's pieces, reading them. And yeah, yeah, the day I like met a lot of people through it,
mm,
and yeah, made a lot of friends from it. And yeah, just felt like, I mean, I would say the day of, I was super nervous.
yeah.
I'm also have like a time lag when I launched it. So yeah, I would say there was about 2 week period where I was just real stressed out. I was like,
Fair.
what the heck are you doing, Trevor? Like you kind of been lurking on this platform for a year and now you're
Right.
asking all these people to do this thing and it could be just like absolutely terrible. Like maybe people like are not they're gonna just write the exact same thing. I was worried about that. Like
Mm,
maybe everyone is just going to like write a really boring description of their day.
right.
Which yeah, which is not what happened. But like yeah, I had all these different fears around it. Like I'm asking people for things and nobody's gonna like these pieces, like all the typical stuff. Um, yeah, and the day of I was yeah, pretty nervous too. And then I think the next day I woke up and I was like, okay, I can actually relax
Right.
and really dive in and read people's work. And I think that's when I was like, oh, the treat. Like it was like I was in an ice cream shop,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
licking all these writers, the flavors of all these writers' brains.
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean it was such a unique event. You know, like you said, a lot of people, what we share on Substack is fiction. It's our stories, it's our worlds. You know, I myself have become far more comfortable than I've ever been on social media with sharing like real life stuff, you know what I mean? Because this community is so kind of, welcoming and inclusive. But yeah, so your event really honed in on allowing people to express that side of themselves. And it was, to your point, it was incredible to see the wide spectrum of the answers that the people submitted. I mean, I read a bunch of them, and none of them were even remotely similar. It's crazy how many perspectives you can bring to the table with something like this. Do you know off the top of your head how many roughly pieces were submitted as part of this event?
Yeah, I think by the end about 150.
Wow, that's great for your because this is your first event you've hosted on Substack, right?
Yep. Hmm.
That's incredible. That's a really good number. Wow. I did my first ever kind of event last year with Flash Fiction February, and I don't think I had anywhere near that many entries. This year I had a lot more, but that's obviously because I've done several events at this point. So that's really impressive. Do you have, now that you've had this success with this event, do you have any interest in doing another event like this or something similar down the road? Do you see yourself kind of hosting more events like this on Substack?
Yeah, I would like to next year,
Hmm.
around the same time, do something similar. Maybe it's the prompt is different, but something related to our creative worlds. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure
Sure.
what it is, but yeah, I would love to yeah, also collaborate with other folks and in developing it too. because this one I mostly developed on my own, but would love to have it be, yeah, more collaborative too in the development of it. But yeah, some other thing that's focused around just celebrating our creative lives
Yeah.
as writers.
Hmm.
Um, I think one of the intentions with Day of the Writer too was to give respect to our daily lives
Hmm.
because we have so much else going on, but we all share in common this desire to create something and bring something beautiful to the world and bring that beauty to bloom in other people. Um, and yeah, just giving respect to the fact that we make that time to do that was one of the intentions there. So yeah, I want to carry that intention forward to whatever the prompt is, but something related to our celebrating some element of our creative self as writers.
Okay. No, I love that. I love that. I will absolutely participate again. I had a great time with this first event that you hosted, so that sounds amazing. So yeah, you obviously mentioned like collaboration. So that's actually perfect for my next question. I noticed that you're part of a publication called Spill Your Dreams, and I was looking into that a little bit. It seems like, some sort of kind of collaborative writer collective sort of thing, but I'd love to hear from your perspective. What's that publication all about, and is it something that people can get involved with as well?
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Spill Your Dreams is it's actually a completely in-person
Mm.
writing collective. It was started as a combination of, so I organize a lot of different things writing related here locally in
Mhm.
Rotterdam. So I organized the Shut Up and Write group in Rotterdam, and I also participate in many different courses. And one thing we realized is that oftentimes you finish a course, and if you're not already connected on Substack, there's this wall that a lot of people hit where they're like, okay, what do I do next? Do I like write the next great novel? Do I like try to submit into the void to get published for the
Mm.
next, 6 months to 3 years and hear nothing back and get completely discouraged? Um, and so, in a weird way, in a mischievous way, it is a way to get my IRL friends onto Substack.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
Um, but so the concept is it's about harnessing our collective creativity.
Mhm.
What we do is we do an activity together, like an inspiration activity that's centered around a theme, and we'll like visit a museum. We will do some sort of a series of free writing prompts or focused, and also eventually like a focused writing prompt to develop a piece. So we will all write different pieces
Hmm.
that come out of the stew and mix of different inspiration that came out during our time together.
Hmm.
And then over the course of several weeks, we'll draft and critique, and then eventually revise and publish on Substack.
Okay.
Um, so one of the cool, it's also just kind of a fun writers hang, because we do just like a lot of just getting to know each other and chatting, and it's bringing people from different parts of my community here together. Um, and so one session we visited a church that had burned down on New Year's Eve in Amsterdam. That somebody had the fireworks situation is like absolutely crazy in the Netherlands. It's like, yeah, literally the entire city is fireworks everywhere.
Right.
And so yeah, one of the fireworks had hit this historic church
Mm.
and burned like the entire roof off. Yeah,
Wow.
it was terrible.
Yeah.
Um, so we visited it and did a reflection from the perspective of like, what if you had burned your firework could accidentally burn down this church?
Yeah.
Like, how would you rationalize that? Uh, would you say, oh no, it's not my fault at all? Like the whole city was a firework. Would you completely deny that it had been your fault at all, or would you be like racked with guilt for the rest of your life? So that was our opening exercise. And then we took a nice, relaxing stroll to a modern art museum that had this exhibition called the Blue Dot Exhibition.
Mm.
So during the Cold War, the Dutch museums had designated pieces of art with either a red dot, a white dot, or a blue dot
Mm.
based off of how important they would be to save in the event of World War III during
Wow.
the Cold War.
Yeah.
And so this was an exhibition with the blue dots, which were the least important deemed for
Mm.
saving
Right.
in event of a war. So the through line of that session was fire, art, and preservation. Like, what do we choose to keep to bring out of a disaster situation, as well as like what creation is inspired by destruction,
Mm.
and by yeah, like how kind of thinking about fires as creative forge at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and so one of the pieces that I was really excited about from really talented writer that came out of that, Anastasia Shafran, is about a dealer of creative sparks.
Oh.
So they like go out and catch creative sparks throughout the world and then sell them
Mm.
to other artists. And so they're kind of at like the end of their career, and debating whether or not they've never like their profession forbids them, their ethics forbid them from getting high on their own supply. So
Right.
they're debating whether or not to ingest one of these creative sparks.
Mm.
So that was a cool piece that came out of that. And then the most recent session, we went to an art exhibition from various neurodivergent artists
Mm.
in Rotterdam,
Mm.
at this one big gallery space. And it was really sensorily intense. And I would say, yeah, really, yeah, a very unpleasant experience, but ultimately, like, really, like I learned a lot from it. Just very heavy bass music, combined with visual, audio disorientation, kind of simulating various different experiences that people have.
Right.
Um, and yeah, it really sparked a lot of interesting ideas that came out of that. And in that session, we took on each person took on either the perspective of an optimizer or a saboteur.
Mm.
The optimizer is focused on how do we improve self-improvement, how do we make the status quo better, how do we reinvent things, how do we achieve more, scale, grow. Where the saboteur is focused on how do we dismantle the status quo? How do we sabotage other people's success, our
Mm.
own success? Yeah, how do we tear things down? And yeah, fully focused on this kind of sabotage. And so we each wrote pieces that were assigned to one of those perspectives. And in the critique period, we're going to swap with an optimizer, will swap with a
Oh.
saboteur.
Okay.
Um, and rather than giving feedback, like we normally do with comments and suggested edits, you will have free reign to either optimize or sabotage the other piece. And then you will eventually get your piece back for revisions. But thought it would be cool to just kind of give people to do something a little different and experimental with this session.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh wow, that is so cool. I mean, yeah, I could talk to you about what you're doing with the Spill Your Dreams stuff all day. I mean, there's just so many cool things happening there. That is really neat. I'll have to dive a bit deeper. Is there any way? I know you said it's very primarily focused on in person, which makes sense given everything you're working on. Is there any way for people on Substack to get involved in any way, or is it really kind of just, if you're not in person, you're more kind of, you're able to like participate in the sense that you can follow along. But is there any way for them to get involved directly at all?
Yeah. So that's something that um, so it is in person. Yeah, I mean, we did really want the focus to be IRL and to
Yeah.
to have it be kind of this connecting glue between our digital selves and our our, real life outside of digital space selves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I will be traveling a bit this year and hope to bring it to
Okay.
different locations.
Yeah.
I'll be going to ReaderCon this year,
Okay.
and had talked with Zanny D a little bit about potentially doing a session there with other Substackers
Okay.
who join.
Yeah.
Um, I also pitched it to a writer at the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, and so we might do it there. And I'll be doing it at pitched it to Litquake in San Francisco,
Mm.
and I will be going to New York in September in case there are any writers, Substackers in New York who would potentially like to join a session. So it is IRL. But I would say once you've participated in a session, then you could join remotely for a follow-up one.
Got it.
Um, yeah, so the focus is IRL for it, but I hope to maybe travel more and also have it be an opportunity to meet other Substackers in person.
That's great. Okay, fantastic answer. I love that. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. So, my next question here, wanted to just kind of look ahead here for the rest of 2026. Obviously, we talked a bit about your serial that you have in the works, but are there any other kind of big writing goals or projects you've got in store for the year that readers should, know about, especially those who are just now discovering you?
Yeah. I am working on a novel. Said every writer ever.
Right.
Um, I actually, one of the first things I did this year with posting is I had like four novel ideas.
Uh-huh.
And so I posted the starts of them on Substack.
Mm,
Um, and I think I finally I no, I know which one I'm going to write. But I'm going to start writing it in May and hope to finish a draft of it by the end of the year.
cool.
So I would say that's my big writing goal. Another one is, yeah, I'm trying to go to a lot of different events this year, like literary festivals, writing festivals, and I want to get published in a literary fiction journal or speculative fiction or sci-fi journal. So I've been sending out a lot of submissions these days. And yeah, that's also a big goal of mine. And then yes, I have a few other collaborations in the works,
Mm,
which are in the R&D phase right now, meaning they're being developed right now just by me, and I haven't shared them with anyone yet.
okay. Okay.
Um, but I'm gonna keep that a secret for now. But
Sure.
a few folks may be hearing from me soon.
Good, 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 good. I love that. Little tease, just a little bit. I like that. Very nice. All right. Well, yeah, my last question for you here. This is something I ask everybody that comes onto the show, and it's one of those questions that gets all these different answers. But I would love to know from your perspective, what is one piece of writing advice that you would give to someone who's just starting out on their creative journey? Or even better, I think would be what's your advice for someone like yourself who maybe hasn't done anything creative in a long time and they're coming back to it? Maybe they just joined Substack, maybe they just started working on a story for the first time, whatever the case may be. What's one piece of advice that you would give to someone like
Be like Bradley Ramsey.
that?
And by that I mean like just be as open as possible to supporting, helping, and connecting with your fellow writers.
Yeah.
Uh, get out of your head. Like
Mm,
I think there's this sensation that I had and coming from this, you know, isolative world building tendency, daydreaming tendency that I had and that, I think a lot of writers I interact have, of thinking that like, oh, if we can just create this perfect world alone and then craft this beautiful thing, then it's going to that's um, but I've found the most success just being open to help people as much as possible, try to go to writing events as much as possible.
yeah.
When I moved to the Netherlands, I moved here because my wife is getting her master's degree here. When
Mm,
I moved here, I had no friends. And so I was like, this is an opportunity for me to make friends through writers. And so like almost like 100% of my friends here are writers. I set 30 minutes on my calendar every week just to like look for writers in my community by going to different writing groups, going to writing events. And it was hard. It was hard to find like writers that I vibed with. But yeah, they're there. They're everywhere. And so yeah, just going out there, making friends, reading other people's stuff, like off like people who I meet at writing groups, just offering to read people's stuff, give them critiques if they would like it. Just yeah, I mean, I don't give people unsolicited critiques.
Sure.
And re-hyping other people's stuff, reposting it, restacking it. Yeah, just trying to do your best to be open to helping other people.
Yeah.
I would say it's really powerful how just when you do your best to put good out, it will come back to you. And it doesn't happen one time. It's not like I did this thing for this one person and therefore they will do back give this thing back to me, but like it will come back potentially 100-fold or on down the line in really unexpected and strange ways. Um, so yeah, be like Bradley Ramsey and like yeah, just be there for other people
Yeah.
and providing this kind of platform like you're providing of having writers share their stories. That's yeah, it's really powerful. And very, very grateful for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really, really appreciate you saying that. Like I said, I hear different answers to that question all the time. That was definitely the first time anyone has said be like Bradley Ramsey, but I love how you connected it, to kind of the work that both of us, I feel like, are doing in terms of, connecting with other writers, lifting them up, hyping up each other's work, just, realizing that your success isn't under threat because you want to support other writers, right? Like if we all help each other out, we all
Absolutely.
win, kind of thing. And I think that's super important, because in other circles it gets real competitive and there's really no reason, right? Like
Yeah.
there's enough attention to go around, you know what I mean, in terms of readers'
Yep.
time, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and what you said just now too, it reminded me of I was on a work trip and I was staying at a hotel and there was this piece of art in the room that I was in. I posted a photo of it on Substack, but it had this quote, and I don't think it was attributed to anybody, but it had a quote that said, aspire to inspire others and the universe will take note. And I just loved that
Mm.
because it's like what we were talking about just now. It's like
Hell
if
yeah.
you help other people get inspired, like that will come back to you. It's like you said, you put the good out and you get good back, right? And
Hmm.
that's what it's all about. And
Heck yeah.
I've always believed that, but it wasn't until I joined Substack that I've seen it in action.
Hmm.
Which is
Hmm.
why it's so cool to talk like to people like yourself, who are very like-minded in that way. So I
Hmm.
really appreciate that answer. And honestly, this has been just such an amazing interview. So thank you again for, coming on
Thank
the show
you.
here. It has been wonderful talking to you. This has been great.
Awesome. Actually, I actually I was first introduced to you via Instagram,
Really? Okay.
not actually Substack. Yeah, I saw your videos of it's nice outside, so I'm gonna yap.
That's the one. That's the
And
one.
then I was like, I need to. Then I saw you on Substack. I was like, holy crap, this guy's a PD. But yeah, it
Yeah.
was funny. I first saw you on Instagram, and but now I'm not really on Instagram as much. But
Yeah,
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 it's cool
yeah.
to
Well, that's really interesting
do
to
some
know.
video.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of fun with those videos, so I'm glad you liked it.
Hmm. Yeah, they're nice.
Good stuff. Well, thank you again for coming on the show, Trevor. Like I said, this was absolutely amazing. I really appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you for this opportunity. And keep on keeping on with the great stuff you do.
Absolutely. All right. And thank you again to Trevor for coming on to the show this week. That was such a good interview. All right. Next up, we'll talk about next week on Substack, as well as updates on my upcoming novel. All right, so as I mentioned last week, at the risk of kindling Happy Nielsen's ire, I will now be sharing weekly updates on my novel here in this final segment of the show. This past week and next has me wrapping up some important deadlines for some paid creative projects, but I've still managed to find a little bit of time to get back into the outline for this work. You see, this is a upcoming cosmic horror novel with 6 POVs, and I had this idea back when I first started writing it that every POV needed an equal number of chapters. And I had some friends beta read the first couple chapters, and it became clear that the story needs to be more organic than that. So instead of, saying every every POV gets, 5, 6 chapters, whatever, I've decided that I'm going to create a hierarchy of the POVs and assign them chapters based on how many they each need for the story to feel whole and complete and well-paced. So I'm ditching this idea that they all have to have the exact same number of chapters. I honestly should have realized that approach was going to force me to artificially shrink or expand each POV to fit that arbitrary number. But now that I've seen it, I'm going to fix the outline so that I can organically tell these different stories and show these different perspectives using however many chapters that requires. So if any of you have done multi-POV works like this, it doesn't have to be 6 of them, even just 2 or 3, please let me know your approach in the comments, because I'm trying to figure out the quote-unquote screen time per character. But in any case, my plan is to rework the outline from here and get back to the draft of the novel, which is currently at 35,000 words. So I'm probably going to read that draft over as well before I add to it, but I'm going to start with that first POV in the first couple chapters and expand that and go from there after I get the outline up to par. So, as far as next steps, this coming week, I'm going to work the outline and figure out how to kind of get it to a place where it feels like the book is finally complete and it organically allows space to breathe for all these characters and POVs. And that will, of course, happen alongside the other deadlines I have this week, being that these other deadlines are creative and paid work. That's part of my dream, right? Like I need to make sure I dedicate time to those so that I can get closer to doing this full time as opposed to my current day job. So let's talk about next week on Substack, but that is the plan for the novel. I hope it is an appealing update. I will have more details and more progress to share next week. Now, next week on Substack, we've got a new power-up prompt tomorrow, and tomorrow I'm actually heading to a in-person author fair here in Virginia. So that's going to be really fun. I'll actually be meeting Connor Mancuso in person for the first time ever as well. So I'm really excited about that. We'll take some photos, and I can finally dispel the rumors from last year that I'm secretly an AI. If you know, you know. It was a joke. This coming week is also going to be my first ever Substack Live, and not one but 2 of them, actually. Monday evening, I will be joining Stefan Pasic for a live poetry reading, and then Tuesday evening I'll be on a live stream with Hallie Jules and the Hot Mess Press for my first ever live interview. It's going to be a really packed week this coming week, but I'm excited about these new milestones and some of the deadlines that'll be getting wrapped up, and of course, progress on the novel. So after this coming week, I'm hoping to catch my breath, but yeah, as we all know, there's plenty more to do always. In any case, thank you, everyone, for joining me this week. We're making it to the end of the show. I hope you loved the shout-outs and the interview. And if you did, I would appreciate a comment here on Substack or a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Trust me when I say it really helps new people find the show, and that's always the goal. But that's it for this week, my friends. As always, I'm wishing you all a safe and productive week of writing, and I will talk to you soon. This is Bradley Ramsey, signing off.
Bradley, I need your help. Hallie Jules is trying to destroy her manuscript.
Wait, you're serious? We gotta stop her.
I know. She doesn't know that the agents rejecting her manuscript are Terminators, living tissue of a metal endoskeleton.
I know what a Terminator is, Arnold.
Her manuscript is the key to stopping Skynet.
Wait, really? Well, doesn't matter. We gotta go now. I'll set up the mic. We'll record a message for her and then we'll head out.
Okay, do it. Set up the chopper.
You know what? Close enough. Let's save the world, buddy.